She was a young lady that had her whole life in front of her. This is one of those stories that make you wish you could reverse the senseless actions of one single person. Actions that can only be described as evil. In a world where everyone has a story, what happens when a promising young life is tragically cut short by an unexpected and violent act? The murder of Dr. Kendra Hatcher serves as a painful reminder of the fragility of life. It's a story that raises uncomfortable questions about how easily things can spiral out of control, even for those who seem to have it all. Kendra, a beloved pediatric dentist, was living the kind of life many would envy. Successful career, family and friends who adored her, and the potential for an even brighter future. But one violent act would turn everything upside down. Welcome to Unmasked, the channel you come to hear the shocking and the unbelievable. On the evening of September 2nd, 2015, Kendra, just 35 years old, was fatally shot in the parking garage of her apartment complex in Uptown Dallas. The incident appeared to be a botched robbery at first, but investigators quickly discovered that it was much more than that. In today's video, we'll take a deep dive into the life of Kendra Hatcher, the investigation that followed her untimely death, and the far-reaching effects this tragedy had on everyone who knew and loved her. Kendra Hatcher was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, in a tight-knit family that always prioritized love and support. From a young age, it was clear that Kendra was a determined, hardworking, and compassionate person. She wasn't just driven by her career ambitions. She was passionate about making a difference in the lives of others, whether it was through her work as a pediatric dentist or her personal involvement in various community initiatives. Her family, the heart of her world, often described Kendra as the glue that kept everyone together. She was the type of person who, despite her busy schedule, always found time to lend a helping hand or offer a word of encouragement. Her career as a pediatric dentist wasn't just a job, it was a calling. Kendra was known for her exceptional skill and her innate ability to connect with children, making them feel comfortable and cared for in what is often a stressful environment. But Kendra wasn't just defined by her work. She had a rich, fulfilling personal life as well. She loved to travel and explore new places, always seeking adventure and a deeper understanding of the world around her. She was described by friends as selfless, always putting the needs of others before her own. And this was part of what made her so beloved by those who knew her. However, her life wasn't without its challenges. Kendra had been married to a man with whom she shared a long history, but their relationship ended in divorce. While difficult, the divorce allowed Kendra to refocus on herself, her career, her friends, and her personal growth. She began to embrace this new chapter, and it was during this time that she met Dr. Ricardo Paniagua. Interesting to note that they met online on a dating app. Though her past marriage wasn't a central part of her life at the time of her death, it shaped Kendra emotionally, making her appreciate the people who truly had her back. Her connection with Ricky seemed promising, but that was all it ever was, a promise, one that was never fulfilled. On the evening of Wednesday, September 2nd, 2015, Kendra Hatcher returned home to the Gables Park 17 luxury apartment complex in Uptown Dallas after a long day at work. Around 7:45 p.m., shortly after Kendra had parked her car in the garage, witnesses in the apartment complex reported hearing screams followed by the unmistakable sound of gunshots. Hashim Saad, a resident in the building, recalled hearing pure fear and then seeing a Jeep Cherokee speeding out of the parking garage after the shots rang out. When Saad went outside, he found Kendra's lifeless body in the parking garage. He immediately called emergency services, but it was too late. Initially, authorities believed the crime might have been a robbery gone wrong, as Kendra's purse was missing and bullet fragments along with a handgun magazine were found near her body. However, as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that this was not a random act. This was an execution-style murder. Gunshot residue found on Kendra's hands suggested she had been forced to raise her hands in a defensive gesture before being shot in the head. The entry wound was located at the top of her head, with the bullet exiting through her chin, indicating a very deliberate and calculated attack. Surveillance footage from the garage was key in piecing together what happened. The footage showed a black Jeep Grand Cherokee entering the parking garage at 7:15 p.m. Kendra's vehicle entered the garage around 7:40 p.m., and moments later, a man was seen approaching her car before returning to the Jeep, which then sped off. The driver of the Jeep, Crystal Cortez, was identified and later seen leaving the scene shortly after the shooting. The vehicle was traced back to Jose Luis Ortiz, who revealed that Brenda Delgado and Cortez had borrowed the car earlier that day. The murder sent shockwaves through the Dallas community, as Kendra was known not just as a skilled dentist but as a compassionate and dedicated person who made a positive impact on everyone around her. Her family was left devastated, and the grief of losing someone so beloved was immeasurable. The family spoke publicly about how Kendra's kind heart and dedication to others had touched so many lives. But nothing prepared anybody for what the investigation was about to reveal. You are about to realize how senseless Kendra's death really was. In the days following Kendra's death, the investigation unfolded with a series of twists and breakthroughs. Investigators initially began by interviewing Kendra's family, friends, and co-workers, trying to piece together the timeline of her final hours. It quickly became apparent that the murder was not a random act of violence. Instead, it was part of a much darker plan. The breakthrough in the case came when investigators identified the people involved: Brenda Delgado, her accomplice Crystal Cortez, and Christopher Love, who had been hired to carry out the murder. The motive: jealousy, obsession, and a desire for control. Brenda Delgado, who had been in a tumultuous relationship with Dr. Ricardo Paniagua, Kendra's boyfriend at the time, could not bear the idea of losing him. Despite their breakup, Delgado remained fixated on Paniagua, monitoring his every move, even resorting to hacking his email and phone accounts. When she discovered that Paniagua had started a relationship with Kendra, she decided to take matters into her own hands, orchestrating Kendra's murder in a cold and calculated fashion. Despite the challenges that came with piecing together the evidence, such as the difficulty of tracing the movements of those involved, investigators eventually gathered enough to charge the three individuals. Brenda Delgado's plan was calculated, but it quickly started to fall apart due to a series of crucial missteps that led to the eventual unraveling of her obsessive plot. The plan itself revolved around three key individuals: Delgado, who was the mastermind; Crystal Cortez, who was tasked with driving the getaway car; and Christopher Love, who was supposed to carry out the murder. The plan began on the evening of September 2nd, 2015, when Kendra Hatcher was returning home from work. Delgado had carefully orchestrated the entire scenario, including the specific timing of the attack. The trio had gathered in the parking garage of the Gables Park 17 complex in Uptown Dallas, where Kendra lived. Cortez, who was driving the black Jeep Grand Cherokee, and Love, who was supposed to execute the murder, were both involved in the plot for personal gain. Delgado had promised them money and drugs in exchange for their involvement. Cortez and Love arrived at the complex earlier in the evening, but they didn't make their move immediately. They parked the car and waited for the right moment. The plan was for Love to carry out the murder while Cortez would remain in the car as the getaway driver. Cortez, as part of the setup, was tasked with driving the Jeep into the parking garage at the perfect time. She would then drive away once Love had done his part and completed the murder. Once Kendra parked and began walking to her car, Love approached her vehicle. He was the one tasked with firing the weapon, specifically a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun, which had been purchased by Love earlier. According to investigators, Kendra was likely ambushed as she was still seated in her car, and Love shot her at point-blank range. The shot was execution style. A clean, calculated hit meant to leave Kendra with no chance of survival. Kendra was shot in the head, and the bullet exited through her chin, indicating that she had raised her hands in a defensive gesture before being killed. After the murder was completed, Cortez, who had been waiting in the car, drove off in the Jeep to make their escape. They were supposed to leave the scene without drawing attention, but that's where the plan truly fell apart. The crime quickly attracted the attention of witnesses. A resident in the building, Hashim Saad, heard the gunshots and saw the Jeep fleeing the scene. He immediately alerted the authorities. The plan had been for Love to quickly flee the scene without being seen, but the delay in action and the attention from witnesses allowed the authorities to gather important evidence. including surveillance footage from the garage. It didn't take long before they identified the Jeep and traced it back to Jose Luis Ortiz, who had been loaned the vehicle by Delgado and Cortez earlier that day. Delgado, despite being the mastermind, made another grave mistake after the murder by trying to manipulate Ortiz into providing a false alibi. Ortiz, however, cooperated with investigators and provided them with key information that ultimately led them to Delgado, Cortez, and Love. It was only a matter of time before Delgado's plot came undone. The case highlighted the dangers of unchecked emotions and obsession, and it took a toll not only on Kendra's family but also on the broader Dallas community. As the investigation progressed, authorities arrested the key suspects involved in the murder. Brenda Delgado, the mastermind behind the plot, was apprehended in April 2016 after fleeing to Mexico. She was extradited back to the United States in October 2016 to face charges of capital murder. Along with Delgado, Crystal Cortez and Christopher Love were also arrested and charged with murder. During the trial, the defense attempted to portray Delgado as a woman deeply hurt by her breakup with Paniagua, using that emotional pain as a justification for her actions. However, the prosecution painted a much darker picture, one of obsession and manipulation. Evidence showed that Delgado had meticulously planned Kendra's murder, even going so far as to recruit Cortez and Love, promising them money and drugs in exchange for their participation in the crime. The jury convicted Brenda Delgado of capital murder in June 2019. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentencing was a moment of justice for Kendra's family, but it did little to erase the grief they would carry for the rest of their lives. The case serves as a tragic reminder of the lengths some individuals will go to when consumed by jealousy and rage. The murder of Kendra Hatcher has left a lasting impact on everyone who knew her. Her family was devastated by her sudden loss, and the grief of losing such a vibrant and caring individual has been immeasurable. Kendra's parents, siblings, and friends have spoken out about the profound void her death has left in their lives. In the wake of her death, Kendra's family channeled their grief into meaningful action, creating a memorial fund to honor her life and support causes that were important to her. The murder of Kendra Hatcher is a heart-wrenching reminder of how fragile life truly is. Her death exposed the complexities of human relationships, revealing how unchecked emotions can spiral out of control. Despite the justice that was served in the form of the convictions of those responsible, Kendra's family and friends will forever carry the weight of their loss. Kendra's story reminds us of the importance of cherishing every moment with those we love and staying vigilant in recognizing the red flags in our relationships. It's a tragic tale, but also a lesson in love, compassion, and the need for awareness. If you found this story compelling, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it this far, your curiosity deserves a reward. Please like, subscribe, and stay informed about more true crime stories that bring awareness to important issues.